Hi, everyone, and welcome. Welcome to another week of Tranquility Talk. And this week's this week's workshop is around this idea of: are you creating boundaries or are you spiritual bypassing? Now, that might strike a few nerves because I think boundaries are a big buzzword today, and just hold on before you start like putting comments in. Meg, what are you talking about? Our boundaries are awesome. They're not bad. I'm not saying that boundaries are bad. I think boundaries are wonderful. I think boundaries are wonderful when they're done in a healthy and loving and transparent way. I think that when boundaries are masked, or is that the right word? If boundaries are presented or masked or masking, I guess I could say, this idea of spiritual bypassing, then I think it deserves a deeper look. You've heard me say this before, and I believe it. You are the guru of you. And so you know when you're setting a healthy, loving boundary that is with an open heart, it's transparent, it feels good, it feels healthy. And you also know when you're might be spiritual bypassing. And if you're not familiar with that word, I was not either. I actually came across an article on Danielle Laporte's website a few weeks ago, and I talked about it in my Sober Tranquility community. And it struck a nerve with a few people. One in particular, she wrote, Meg, something to the effect of, this resonates with me. When I have an uncomfortable feeling, I go sage the room. And I have to share with you that, yes, I am one to sage as well. This is a sage that has been sitting in my cupboard. Fortunately, I haven't used it, or I haven't felt the need to use it, but I know what that feels like, to have an uncomfortable feeling and want to avoid it, and run into the arms of quote unquote spirituality, saging, energy work, whatever it may be. And let me tell you again, I love saging. I love doing energy work. I'm part of a Reiki energy circle. I have a Reiki master. I love all that stuff. And I also love stretching myself more in terms of being with what is, rather than running from uncomfortable feelings. So let's talk about that today. I just wanted to throw in the little sage part. And you have to see on my desk here, look what I have. I mean, I've got my beautiful singing bowl from my dear friend Kristen Carter, and I have all the spiritual mementos here. I've got my diffuser going, so I'm all about creating energetic and also physical boundaries, whether it be in situations or with certain people in your life. And I also feel that a lot of times, at least for me in particular in the past, I stepped into this idea of spiritual bypassing. So I segue. What is spiritual bypassing? Spiritual bypassing, if you're not familiar with the term, is this idea of running, like I said, into the arms of kind of using spirituality, and this is the way I take it, using spirituality as a band-aid or a banky, like I like to say. When you're little, you might have had a banky. It's using spirituality to avoid uncomfortable feelings. And I understand that well. For years, I would spend my time decluttering, organizing, decluttering again, moving furniture, checking out every spiritual practice under the sun. I've done acupuncture, EFT, sound healing, all of it. And I still do. I love all of it. And yes, I still rearrange furniture. Ask anyone who knows me. And oftentimes I look back on difficult times in my life, and I used those, which is okay. You want to do things that lift your spirits. I think I used them in a way to avoid unpleasant feelings. So I was introduced a few years ago. I think it was a few years ago. Maybe it was even just, I don't know, a little over a year ago. To I kind of equate him to a younger British Eckhart Tolle. And if you haven't heard of Jeff Foster, I highly recommend checking him out. Can you see the book? Okay. Jeff Foster, and he's written many books. One of my favorites is The Deepest Acceptance, Radical Awakening in Ordinary Life. The Deepest Acceptance. And in fact, a good friend of mine invited me into just a small, intimate book club. It's just actually 3 of us. And we spent I think it was close to 8 months going through this book. And in fact, we just finished Jeff's second book. And it was a radical awakening for me because I had really relied on the beautiful teachers like Esther Hicks. If you've heard of her, Esther and Jerry Hicks, with Abraham and all of those books, Ask and It Shall Be Given, The Secret, and all of these beautiful books and teachings on manifestation. And I loved it. And it was exactly what I needed at that time. I believe that things come to us and teachers come to us exactly when we need them. And so I was at the point where I really got the whole idea of manifestation, thinking positive thoughts, embodying what you desire, being the person who you want to be, creating the vision boards, all of that. I had absorbed. I felt like I felt like I had a PhD in it. And I used it in my life. And I still do. And then I reached a point where I was desiring more. I was desiring a deeper dive. And that's when my dear friend came to me and said, "Hey, do you want to check out this book by Jeff Foster? It's called The Deepest Acceptance." And so we dove into it. And it was a really interesting journey over those 8 to 9 months. It was at times a very painful journey because I was like, I don't want to do what he's throwing out there. Like, why would I want to sit? Why would I want to sit in my pain, my emotional pain? Why would I want to feel uncomfortable feelings? Why on earth would I say to myself, okay, tell me more. What else are you upset about? Okay, how else do you feel? Okay, let's sit with this uncomfortable feeling. Let's sit with this guilt, this shame, this regret. Let's sit with this anger towards someone. Let's sit with this inability to forgive myself or to forgive someone else. Oh my gosh, it was not fun at all at times. And yet I was so grateful for the little mini community that my friend had created around this, because I would never have finished this book on my own, because it's deep and it requires introspection. And for me, at least, it required discussion. What I found through reading this and just going through this journey of accepting what is and not trying to push away reality, in fact, trying to embrace and love what is, what I found was there is freedom in that. And what is required to get to that place of freedom is the ability to step into courage, the ability to be with the feelings that you don't really want to be with. And so, hold on one moment. Okay, there we go. And so it's definitely, you have to be ready for it, I guess, because I think for the majority of my life, I did practice spiritual bypassing. I didn't want to feel uncomfortable feelings. Reese Witherspoon, who I enjoy all of her movies and books, Whiskey in a Teacup, by the way, check out that book. That's light and lovely and fun. It's about decorating and baking and cooking, and it's fun. Anyway, but she talks about, she has this quote that says something to the effect of, during the difficult times, hang on. During the boring times, refuel. And during the amazing times, just absorb it all and be in it. And what I realize is that oftentimes I was either hanging on during difficult times, or I was, just wanting all the great times. In fact, I was pushing away the difficult times, and I wasn't comfortable with myself just to be and refuel in the kind of, normal, boring times when nothing much is going on. I wanted that extreme of everything fun and everything feeling good. And going through this process of accepting what is and looking at life and emotions and relationships and work and just everything as waves that come and go. Like, okay, here comes the tidal wave of turbulence, and I'm going to ride it out, because this too shall pass, because I see another wave of calm and tranquility coming, and I'll absorb that as well. And so what I found is that it takes courage to sit in the lull and be okay with that, and be okay with being with yourself. And it takes courage to ground yourself into the turbulence of that turbulent wave. What else did I want to share with you? I kind of went on a tangent there. I wanted to, my Reiki master, she's amazing. And, how does this relate to what's going on now? So up until about a year ago, I pretty much let go of watching the news. I spiritually bypassed the news and put a boundary around myself, because I was like, I can't deal with that. That's bringing me down. Can't see it. Don't want to see it. Don't want to see animals being hurt, children being hurt, older people being discriminated against, whatever, just like, it was too much. It was too much. And so I just checked out. I really did. People would say, oh, did you hear what's going on? And I'd be like, no, I didn't. It was like I was in a time warp. Excuse me. So it wasn't until, about a year and a half ago, maybe. And I was at one of my Reiki circles with Catherine, our Reiki master. And she brought up how she, too, had shut off the news for years. And then all of a sudden, she thought, well, wait a minute. If I'm this energy worker, this energy healer, if I talk about putting good vibes out into the world, don't I have to be in the world to give my gifts and to live my purpose? If I stay in my bubble, then okay, that's good. But wait a minute, outside my bubble, all these people need my good energy. They need my Reiki work. And so she started watching the news, of course, just not like immersing herself in the news. From what I understood what she said, it was more she'd watch a little bit of news every day. She would see what was going on, and she would send healing in her way, because that's her gift. And it really got me thinking, and I thought, you know what, she's right. I have to step into courage. I have to be, in order to really be awake, I have to be awake to what's going on in the world. And so I started watching the news in small amounts. I didn't become immersed in it, right? I didn't dive into the whole pool and 24/7, but I did it. So I was aware, and I could see the hurt in the world, and I could make that a decision that day that I was going to bring my gifts of love and compassion to everyone I met or anyone I interacted with, whether it was painful or joyful. And that's a continual process that I go through. Another thing Catherine talked about was she realized that, in order to really be the person that she wanted to be in the world and to be able to give her gifts, she had to make some changes in in habits and rituals and all of that. So if you relate to this, if you feel like, gosh, maybe I am spiritual bypassing, maybe I'm using spirituality or using whatever. You can be a spiritual, you can use spirituality to bypass difficult emotions. You can use food, you can use alcohol, you can use gossip. So it's really not just spiritual bypassing, it's just what's your drug of choice, so to speak. And when I say drug, like drug of choice, is it spirituality? Is it following gurus and trying to be them and following to a T what they say, regardless of how it lines up with you? And so I think that's really important to talk about, because setting boundaries is a wonderful thing. Setting boundaries to avoid reality or to avoid difficult discussions or to avoid being uncomfortable is not so great. Sometimes I feel, and I'm just going to throw it out there, we talked about this in the Sober Tranquility community earlier this week. I feel like sometimes our society has gotten to this me, myself, and I, where sometimes we become inflexible. We just say, this is how I'm setting everything up, and this is how it works for me. And that's good. You have to take care of yourself first before you can take care of other people. And I also feel that we can't lose sight of the fact that we're so connected to one another that if we don't open our eyes to the need for support, the need for compromise, the need to not always be right, I think that's when real change occurs in how we experience our lives. Because how we really feel, how you feel today, is creating your life. It's as simple as that. So I encourage you to step into the pain. And I know that sounds counterintuitive, and yet the pain is where any kind of healing begins. If you're going through a crisis right now, if you're experiencing pain, congratulations, because within that space, you now have the ability to heal. And I'll leave you with that. So welcome it all. Resist the urge to push it away through spiritual bypassing, through boundaries, through food, through alcohol, whatever it may be, and show up and be courageously you and step into who you are. And I invite you, as always, to check out sobertranquility.com and the 30-day reset. People go through a 30-day reset where they release alcohol, to set it aside and put the focus on cultivating more joy. It's a lot of fun. You can check out the testimonials. And then they stay on in the community and decide whether, hey, you know what? I was really relying on alcohol as a crutch. I'm not anymore, so I think I can moderate. Or, hey, I was really relying on alcohol as a crutch, and I feel so good now that I just don't even want to drink anymore. So it's really about living more and drinking less. And you can really apply all of the lessons and principles to really anything, whether it be spirituality or food or whatever you're using to bypass life. So there you go. Have a wonderful weekend, and I'm so glad that you're here with me, and I look forward to your comments and suggestions and feedback. Okay, bye-bye.